All right, what's happening, everybody? Robert Phoenix here, just getting the show started, cranking up. Going to go over to Facebook and let the Facebook people know that it is happening. It is on. Here we go. Let's see what we got here. Got a few messages. Let's see. All right. Let me get to my group. Group, where are you at? Where you at, group? I'll just throw this on the little page here. One sec. All right. There we are. Message sent. People over on Facebook theoretically know. And we got people showing up. There's Judy and Christine and Sandy. Hey, what's happening, Mr. Ra? Mr. Ra, Mr. Ree, Mr. Ra of the Mystery. There's Liz. Hi, Liz. Of course, there's the lovely Joan S. Let's see. You'll be on the Leak Project in an hour. Oh, okay. Good job. I'll be sure to end my show in 58 minutes then, so everybody go watch Raw. Just kidding. Hi, Dawn. What's going on? And there is Aga Horan, all the way from rainy Chicagoland, and Joe Dimitri. What's happening? Sandy. Hi, Sandy. Here we go. All righty. So what's going on out there? I'm gonna hang out just for a while. Just let people gather in the foyer, in the digital foyer. There's a lot going on right now with Neptune opposing the sun, and it's been a fairly odd Virgo season so far. And it's like there's this cosmic clash going on between the forces of Virgo and the forces of Pisces. It only appears that way on the surface, although yesterday over on Facebook, or starting on Friday and then spilling on over into Saturday, that cosmic clash was clearly being played out. And as soon as we get enough people in here, I'll share the story with you. It's quite interesting, actually. And it's interesting watching, an aspect getting played out in real time. And I'll give you the context of it. Some of you who follow some of the posts over on Facebook probably might even know what I'm talking about. But super interesting. All right, let me see who else is coming into chat. The chat, that's where it's at. Who else is over there? Let's see. Something in Asperger's, I'm still bringing info, something from Aldebaran. Buffering. Okay, let's try the buffer bit. There it is. Yeah, it's been a challenging Virgo season. Okay, hold on. Is that better? Is that better? So Ra had a vision of this vernal equinox, something like an asteroid, some sort of stone, bringing something in from Aldebaran. Well, what's interesting is we've been getting a lot of asteroid info lately. It's been a kind of on the radar. I don't know if you guys have been tracking some of these near misses with the planet, but it's been pretty interesting, and they seem to be getting a bit more frequent. So I think that that a stone coming in from Aldebaran, bringing us information. That could be an interesting prospect, as long as it doesn't hit my truck. I'm okay with that. Just I don't want it to hit my truck. Ocean somewhere. Speaking of ocean, there's a hell of a lot going on in the Caribbean with the Bahamas. So this whole thing with Dorian is also quite astrological, and we'll get into that as well, because you'll see what I'm talking about when we get there. But apparently there's a bunch of stuff in the Caribbean that Dorian theoretically wiped out, and when we get into the chart of the moment, we'll talk more about that. But I would say, by and large, keep your eyes on the oceans right now. Keep your eyes on the oceans. Just sort of look around. There's a lot of information, energy, messages. I'm noticing some sort of cyclical, sort of synchronistic patterns. We did a show on Friday about Atlantis, and it was a really good show. And then all of a sudden, I started to see more stuff around Atlantis, and other things that were like an observatory, an underwater observatory that was there, and then all of a sudden it wasn't there. I mean, so there's a lot of unusual stuff going on right now, and a lot of it is centered around the Caribbean, and of course, what happened with the Bahamas and it getting just completely pummeled. So there's a lot of kind of intense, oceanic energy, and I think that some of it is sort of connected to the Jupiter-Neptune square, but I really feel like the opposition of Neptune, and we haven't even gone through the opposition of Neptune with Mars. That feels very tsunami-like. That Neptune-Mars opposition, which is, I think where are we now? Let's bring up the chart of the moment. Let's use this as an opportunity, a teaching opportunity, shall we? All right, let me make sure that I have this thing here on my desktop, which we do. Let's see what we got. Let me just grab one more shot. I think, hold on, this might be it. Is this it? Yeah, yes, I got it. All right, here we are. Here we are. So, yeah, we're not quite there yet with the Mars opposition. It's getting close though. So this was the chart of the moment. Is it 440? What? That's in Dubai. That's not the right chart of the moment. Let me reframe. Let me do that. Let me do a different chart. That'll be very, very helpful. Let me get the right chart. If you're in Dubai, that's what's happening right now. Give me 1 second. Change this up. How's everybody's weekend going? I think it's been a very odd weekend in a lot of ways. Very, very strange weekend. But not necessarily bad, per se. All right, where are we? All right, let's see. And gotta go over here. There we go. They've changed their settings a little bit. Give me 1 second. Yeah, it's been a crazy weekend. Well, I wouldn't say it's crazy. I think the energy has been unusual, to say the least. Here we go. And I just think it has to do with the opposition, Neptune opposition. Okay, here we go. All right, chart of the moment, take 2. Here we go. And home. Football season started today, and the start. I'm telling you right now, I've got a theory about this upcoming football season, which I'll share with you guys in a moment. Because I know some of you are into sports, some of you aren't, but I think it's going to be a very weird season for the NFL. Very strange. All right, let me ditch this and this other share. I started to pick up on the high strange of the NFL about a month ago. Actually, it's about 2 weeks ago, and it involves a Virgo, actually, which kind of kicks this cycle off. And so far, what I've seen has affirmed my suspicions about the 100th year. This is the 100th year anniversary of the NFL. Okay, so here's the chart of the moment. It's actually Pisces rising right now here in Texas, Fredericksburg, Texas. And we do have the T-square. It's still in effect. We still have this Jupiter Neptune T-square and or square. And then we've got the Virgo planets coming to the party now. We've got Sun. The Sun will be opposite Neptune tomorrow, and it'll stay in opposition, although it is separating from Neptune. And that's going to be, well, we're going to be looking at on the 9th, it's going to be at 17 degrees, so it'll be close to exact opposition. The 10th, 18th, and then the 11th, 19. So it'll still be in opposition from Neptune, slight separation, so it's moving away. And there's already stuff bubbling now about 9/11. It's sort of like this. It's kind of like this methane field, and the methane bubbles now are starting to come up. And because I'm seeing some stories, and the architects of 9/11. No matter what you think about those guys, right? They came out and they did a brand new study. They dropped that last week, and it had to do with how jet fuel there's no way that jet fuel could do what it did on those buildings. Of course, fuel is a Neptunian substance, right? It is a Neptunian Piscean substance. Speaking of which, he's got this ritual. And the ritual is he kind of like stalks me for about, I don't know, 45 seconds, a minute. He's kind of stalking me. And then he's like, this is my time. This is when I'm coming. This is when I'm making my grand entrance. So anyway, here he is. Everybody say hi, Jasper. Ask Jasper the Astro Cat. Jasper the Astro Cat. So the architects of 9/11 came out with a new study. Now, there are people who have an issue with those guys. And there are other people who think that they're on the money. I mean, what they're trying to obviously come at 9/11 still to this day from an engineering perspective, okay? Because, well, they're architects, and that's what they do. But back when I was doing a lot of my hardcore research on 9/11, there was a very strong feeling that they had been compromised and infiltrated, and that they were actually leading people away from certain aspects around 9/11, that they were actually gatekeepers. Now, I can't deny or confirm it, but they're still around and they're still doing their thing. So, and they have a new study, and that study happens to be the fact that the jet fuel could not burn down those buildings. So here we go. This is a perfect example of kind of a horary event, right? Or a mundane event. This is a mundane event where they release the findings. And what are they? Well, they're scientists, or they're engineers who use principles of science in order to figure things out and build things. And so they're in the Virgoan realm. That's what they do. So they're in the Virgoan realm. They're using logic, they're using reason, they're using all these different models and data. Very Virgo. And then what are they doing? They're using that against Neptune, or That's what it looks like with the release of the material from the mundane perspective. So it's a fit. It's a total fit because they're essentially saying that there's no way that jet fuel could. And we know that jet fuel is not solely responsible for the taking down of those two towers. No way. There's no way possible. Some people think that that it's possible, and even some people in the conspiracy realm, which I think is interesting, think it's possible, right? But I think that that this is definitely qualifying as a mundane event, and so I think there's going to be more because this is just kind of one. This is one event. This is one piece of so-called evidence or one piece of phenomena that I think we're going to see over the next couple of days as we again approach the anniversary of the darkest, most occult sacrifice of time and freedom in our history. Okay, and you may think, well, what about World War I? What about World War II? What about the Holocaust? What about the Black Plague? No, I'm telling you, 9/11 is a major node and what I would call a dark pivot in our modern, not only our modern history, but history in general. You know, I did a lot of work looking at this timeline with Kennedy and a lot of the astrological players in that timeline, and you know, I just kept seeing Gemini. There was this theme of Gemini that was emerging constantly as I looked at the characters and I looked at the dates and I looked at the numbers. And what came to my attention, and this is what I've shared with people in the past, is that when Kennedy died, and yes, he did die. He was not extracted. And I've said the story before. I had a client whose husband, who's quite old now, was on call in emergency in Dallas and worked on Kennedy's brain. And so he was there. This woman's not going to lie about it. So when Kennedy died, and let's just play, you know, you want to play devil's advocate. Let's say he didn't die. Let's say it was a Miles Mathis fantasy or something like that. Kennedy is no longer here, so does it really matter, right? In our minds, he died. In our consciousness, he died. In the movie that we were living in, he died, right? So I do believe it was a physical death, based on what I know. When that happened, that was on 11/22/1963. And when you get into 11, you get into 22, you start doubling. You start seeing the doubles. You start seeing the 2 1s, which, quite honestly, it's the Twin Towers. And then you have the 2 2s, again, which is 11 times 2. You have 20. So the whole thing comes up to 33. There we go. It is the number, very, very significant number in Freemasonry. The 33rd degree is the degree that you're supposed to essentially murder Christ, right? That's kind of the big ritual of the 33rd degree. And you murder Christ, and you murder any other belief system that you have attached yourself to. Some people think that when they do this, I'm not saying this is what happens. Some people think when they do that, when they have that ritual where they cast or they plunge a knife into this coffin, that there's actually somebody in the coffin, which is why they're like, okay, we got you now, right? I mean, I don't think that's necessarily the case, although you never know with these sorts of things. Yeah, so now we have the 33, the grand number 33. And of course, who was on the ground in Dallas? Right? What do we have in the middle of Dallas? We have the 2 L's. Just like we have the 11, we have the Twin Towers. And who is on the ground in Dallas? George Herbert Walker Bush. He was basically he was one of the people that was coordinating the event. So JFK was a Gemini. George Herbert Walker Bush was also a Gemini. So now you have, again, this Gemini effect, and the double and the double, and the duality, and it's a dark occult magical equation because it's through the occult practice of magic that duality is theoretically resolved. Right? It is a dark alchemy. That's what that's what it amounts to. Then you move forward in time. And everything that happened after, once Kennedy was gone, we were off on a different timeline. Different timeline. And then, of course, all the programs of the 60s kick in. Tavistock, MK Ultra, all the stuff, LS, you know, the drugs, mind expanding drugs. Other drugs that weren't so mind expanding either. A lot of heroin in the 60s. You know, that's when we get into Neptune and Scorpio. And that was a time, you know, Neptune and Scorpio was a real druggy time. Very, very druggy. And people that were born under Neptune and Scorpio had to deal with it. Right? It was part of the milieu. So then, of course, you know, we sort of, you know, get lost. You know, we get lost along the way during that period of time. What's really interesting is that when we move forward, of course, George Herbert Walker Bush comes back and becomes president of the United States, and then he launches his whole New World Order game. And then it's his son, another George, and so we're dealing with doubles now, right? Two, like the Gemini effect, two Georges. So everything is, you know, just repeating this pattern that there are two sets of data. There are two sets of information. There are potentially two timelines as well. And it had to happen. It had to happen when it did. It couldn't happen on the first day of 2000. It couldn't happen. You know why? Because Bush wasn't president then. He wasn't president. Wasn't president. It had to happen. Well, I suppose he was president in 2000, but that wasn't going to happen then. It's 2001. 2001. 2001, A Space Odyssey. Had to happen then. So when we go to 2001, of course, now we have the younger Bush in the White House. At the time that 9/11, I think I have the 9/11 chart. Why don't I throw it up here again? Just because it's always good to look at. I always like going back to this chart. I think it's a really, 9/11 is it's huge. And so many people now, look, there are a lot of kids that don't know about 9/11. And their 9/11 might be like, I don't know, Parkland School or something like that. Let's see what we got here. So, of course, the Twin Towers were bought by Larry Silverstein. What's Larry Silverstein's sign? Is it Gemini? Look at the Geminis involved here. You got Kennedy, G.H.W. Bush. You have Bush the younger, who is a double. Then you have Larry Silverstein, who's a Gemini. You have the Twin Towers. And then who was on watch? Who was on watch at that time? It was Rudy Giuliani. And do you know what sign Rudy Giuliani is? He's also a Gemini. See? The patterns are there if we can just recognize that. All right, let me just go in here. Let's do this. We'll get back to the chart of the moment in a minute. Or the week ahead. We're in improv mode. Okay. Slide that over there. I hope everybody's having a good Sunday night and a good weekend. I hope some of you or all of you got to experience something that reminded you of your humanity and your spirit. Maybe it was friends, or being with your animal friends, or being out in nature, or doing something creative. Maybe it was meditating or whatever. I hope you had some of that. I hope you got to experience some of that this weekend. It's very important. All right, here we go. This is where things were at that time. Okay, 8:46 a.m. We have Libra on the ascendant in Mercury. You know what's really interesting about that is that you guys remember that there was a guy who was right there. He was like the first person CNN interviewed, and he told the story. He told the story. And this was a guy who showed up at a number of these other events, and turns out he was a producer. He might have even been a producer for CNN. He was right there. He was the gadfly. He was the first person that gave us the news. And not only did he tell us that a plane had hit the Twin Towers, but he was also telling us that there were terrorists involved, and likely Osama bin Laden. You know, that's Mercury on the ascendant right there at that moment. Boom, right? There's somebody right on the spot to tell that story. You want to pay attention. Look at the top right here. You see that? Sirius, the dog star, the blazing star, was conjunct the midheaven at that time. High noon. Belial Sirius was at high noon in the chart. Of course, it's not high noon because 8:46 in the morning. But this is a kind of a big deal, actually, because Sirius is a very important star to the esoteric brethren, the dwellers on the threshold, the keepers of the flame, the lodges that have their residences all across this country. Sirius is a very, very serious place. It's heaven. It's their heaven. It is the blazing star. It is their heaven, and that is where they believe that God dwells. Sirius. Of course, you know, we just had this really big show on Friday about Sirius, or about Atlantis, and how the Syrians were one of the colonizing parties on this planet. And then the head Syrian dude himself was theoretically none other than Yahweh, right? So Sirius is right there, right at that time. Look at that. Perfect timing. Perfect occult timing. The blazing star of the lodge, right on the midheaven. Okay. So then we've got Jupiter, which is conjunct. So we have the second sun. Jupiter, the second sun. You remember when they fired that rocket into Jupiter? Remember that? You know what they called that rocket? They called it Lucifer. And Jupiter is, you know, the heavenly story of Jupiter and Saturn are very much like Yahweh and Lucifer, and that Yahweh is Saturn, the strict God who demands all of your attention, all of your devotion and love. And Jupiter is the other God. The God says, "Hey, you're okay. You're all right. I believe in you. I believe in you. In fact, I might even be able to help you. Oh, forget that other guy. Too many rules. Too many rules." Jupiter's like, "Oh, come on, just have one more. Just have one more. You can handle it." Yeah. So that's part of their story. That is part of their story. Jove, Jupiter, Jove, and Saturn. Yahweh. Anyway, Enki and Enlil are in that mix as well, with Enki being Jupiter and Enlil being Saturn. Of course, that's what their pattern was. You know, the good brother. Well, who would you say was good? I'd rather hang out with Enki than Enlil. Enki liked beer. I wouldn't want to hang out with Enlil. I maybe want to start a business with Annabelle, but I'm not sure I'd want to hang out with him. Anyway, we've got Jupiter right up there, the second sun conjuncting. So we have Jupiter conjunct Sirius. That's a big deal. Amplification. Then we have the true node in Cancer, and look what we got coming up here. We're coming up on the nodal return of 9/11 right there. And that's going to happen in March of next year. That should be interesting. And then here's really the key planets in a lot of ways. There's that moon in where? Gemini, 28 degrees. It's the anaretic degree of Gemini. So it's volatile. Those last degrees, 27, 28 are volatile degrees. It's not anaretic, 29 is anaretic, but it's at that volatile degree. And then we have Saturn, which is, this is, you know, the whole thing is like, you know, kind of fascinating here because we have Pluto opposite Saturn. And for me, that's representative of some kind of obliteration because the second house represents structures and forms, you know, land, leases, things like that. And you have Pluto here, Sagittarius, and it's in a pretty intense relationship. It's in a T-square with the Sun and with Saturn. To me, this is explosive. Sun-Pluto square, and then the Sun is ducking into the 12th house. It's hiding for cover. And then we have a Saturn-Sun square. To me, this is like, and I really feel like, you know, this is how this whole thing played out. This is the emergence of a new authority. Because you have a clash between Saturn and the Sun, right? There's one entity and then there's another entity. And one entity is descending. One entity is moving towards darkness. It is moving towards occultation. The other entity is ascending and it's moving towards the top of the chart. So Saturn is going to gain prominence over the Sun here. And Saturn is literally forcing its cosmic will upon the Sun. And when you throw Pluto in, what you have is you have a force multiplier and a generator that is going to take that aspect and blow it up. Not only that, but down in the third house, which is the house of Gemini, we know that we're dealing with the twin towers. We have Chiron in Sagittarius, and that's opposing the moon. And then we have Mars at the first degree of Capricorn. Now, isn't that interesting? Because we know Capricorn represents the hierarchies, the elites, the banking structures. You know, it's Capricorn is the power of Earth, the earthly power. And Mars is in a very strong position in the first degree. It's also conjuncting the South Node. And the third house being that it's Gemini's house. You know, Gemini is ruled by Mercury. Mercury's a trickster. Mercury is a trickster that moves between worlds, and sometimes writes things, and other times tries to write things and makes a mess of them. And sometimes intentionally. You know, Mercury is he's a trickster. He's the Hayokaya. And in the third house, that's Gemini's house. We have Mars there. And we have the South Node and Chiron. Somebody's playing a trick on us. It's a big trick. It's interesting. I'm wondering if the return of the South Node will be instructive. You know, I have my doubts because I'm amazed at the programming that takes place. I mean, it's always happening, but I'm always blown away by like the next wrinkle or the, you know, the next fatty layer of it. You know, it's mind blowing. You know, every now and then I go to Yahoo and I read their homepage, and it's like, what passes for news is it's absurd. Like the big Yahoo story this last week, last few days was Demi Lovato in a bikini showing off her ample derriere, which some people, they like that. I mean, it's like, some people like, some junk in the trunk. But then she was also showing off her cellulite. Now, how old is Demi Lovato? Is she old enough for, I guess, cellulite is a condition, right? Anyway, she was showing off her cellulite. And the thing is that, it was turned into this, really heroic act. And the things that pass for heroism these days, they blow my mind because, in a society where a form of confession equals an outpouring of courage, I'm just not sure I understand it fully, completely. I mean, I get it, right? I get it. Because a lot of people, they're setting the bar just really low. That's what's happening. The bar is set really, really low. And yet that's where the programming, you go to that page, you go to that story, and who knows, maybe they're, fiddling with the clicks and the counts and all that shit. But there's a lot of people that read that story. And then a lot of support for Demi Lovato and being able to be okay with I get it. Being okay with your body image is, I think it's important. But actually having a healthy body and taking care of your body might be just as equally as important. I'm not here to judge, but the response was like, she'd cured fucking cancer or something. And she was just sporting some cellulite. But it's not uncommon. Last week, I was reading a story about Arnold Schwarzenegger's son. What's his name? Bana. The kid that's his and the maids. Yeah. So he was out with two stunning blondes. I'm like, this is a story. What they were trying to do. They were sisters, by the way. Speaking of twins, they like to do that. They were like, here was the hint. It was like, he might be getting himself into a little threesome. Like, ooh la la, right? I mean, this is kind of where things are headed. And I'm not here to be the church lady, trust me. But that was the sub narrative of the story. So the reason why I'm bringing this stuff up is because when you've got this shit going through people's heads and stuck between their ears, do they care about 9/11? No, they may be caring about some fashion channel over on YouTube. By the way, that's another thing. I should show you guys this. I'll show it to you in a bit. I get these fashion channels. I can look at me. Does it look like I care about fashion? I mean, sometimes I try to, color coordinate and everything. But YouTube is now giving me these fashion channels. And fashion's the new thing. It is like this, it's this thing now. Oh, fashion is so cool. It's so cool. Ain't fashion cool? Isn't makeup cool? Isn't hair cool? And you watch kids now, you watch commercials. Kids are highly stylized. They're highly stylized. The hair is stylized, the clothes are stylized, they're highly stylized. And that is the new sort of mantra, right? Fashion. It's so cool. And I'm looking at these channels. You gotta be kidding me. Anyway, this is part of the programming. This is why young people, they may not care about this. What? 9/11? Oh yeah, I heard about it. But have you seen what Cardi B's wearing? Is that in here somewhere? Is that in here somewhere? What's interesting is that we've got the forces of the trickster in the third house. We have this new order that is asserting itself. It is moving towards the midheaven. It is essentially hacking into the sun. Saturn in this position is hacking into the sun. It is bleeding the sun. And then with the opposition with Pluto tapping into that Plutonian force, which is right at the cusp of the second and the third. There you go. We also have a Venus-Uranus opposition taking place. That can be a bit hysterical, you know? Venus-Uranus oppositions can be a bit hysterical. They're challenging in a personal chart. Timing around relationships. Relationships ending unusually, starting unusually. It's almost like you would have no control over your relationship life with the Uranus-Venus opposition. But there's bedfellows there. The sextile with Venus to Saturn. Look at the ninth house. So what is the ninth house? The ninth house represents what? Foreign countries. Places overseas. Yep, that's right. So we have foreign involvement in this event. Well, of course, that's the way it was marketed to us. But was that the only foreign government involved or foreign entity involved in what happened on that day? I'd say no. No. And then we have Neptune at that time, you know, down in the fourth house. And Neptune, it's a tricky place for Neptune, the fourth house. It can be very unstable, and there can be a lot of hysteria, a lot of drama, a lot of projection. You know, Neptune here is in a grand trine, which is interesting because it's got the trine to Mercury and the trine to Saturn. So we're talking about air, and so it's in a grand trine. So I would say, by and large, that while there is a great degree of explosive energy around this, you got a mystic rectangle in there too, that there are clear lines of communication also happening at the same time. They may not have been happening at the same time, or for us, right? Because everybody had to figure out what the hell was going on. Of course, Osama bin Laden's name surfaced they were ramping him up, by the way. You know, there was a lot of bin Laden propaganda that was being force fed to us during that time. Because by the time this happened, you had to know who he was. You know, he was public enemy number one. So the lines of communication in some ways are very clear here between Neptune and Saturn and Mercury. You know, if a certain group has an agenda, well, they're on point. Their message is on point. They're bringing that message right up into the ascendant at 14 Libra. That's kind of right on my my moon Mercury. There's, you know, are there lies there? I'd say there's exaggerations. Look, we got a Mercury square to Jupiter. And, you know, this is right around the sun for the United States, right? It's right around the U.S. sun. U.S. sun is conjunct Sirius. So the U.S. sun is right at the top of this chart. Conjunct Sirius, very interesting. Very, very interesting. And the old midheaven is, the old midheaven squares Mercury there. Biquintile to Uranus, biquintile to Pluto. Interesting. So what's happening now with this chart? Well, we can see that the south node is going to come around. That's going to be around March. And we've got the true node coming around again. That'll be around March, right? But here we've got transiting Neptune, and this is what I was talking about right there. Right there. The opposition to the sun. And then all these planets, this gang of Virgo and messengers is going to be going down and ducking down into the 12th house behind the scenes. So something has the potential to emerge and then like surface and then come back down again. Uranus will hit the vertex of the event next year, the end of next year after a retrograde period, and then going back into Taurus. So it'll hit that vertex. I'm not sure what it will do per se, if anything, as it relates to 9/11. Hard to say. I wouldn't think it would do much of anything Well, you know what it is doing? This is interesting. It is squaring, it will be squaring natal Neptune there. That's interesting. You know, I'll bet you that if you dig deep enough, you'll find Jeffrey Epstein's fingerprints on 9/11. He seems to have smudged his fingers all over the place, right? Why not 9/11? You know, he was in bed with MIT and DARPA and a bunch of other people. Why not 9/11? Sure, he knows all about it. By the way, I just read a piece about this woman who is coming forward, and man, she's very different than these other women. Very, very different. She's desperate. She's lives in her car, harassed, and she names names. And the person that she had gotten in touch, well, how Epstein got in touch with her was through the DC madam. Was it Deborah Palfrey? Yeah. And according to her, she's alive. The DC madam is alive. And according to her, Jeffrey Epstein is alive as well, which of course I have no doubt that he is. No doubt. And I think somewhere, if you follow the clues and the tracks far enough, probably back to Jeffrey Epstein too. Anyway, the next few days could be interesting. Again, look for something to surface, emerge, and then kind of disappear. And Trump has been on a tweeting rampage lately, so who knows? Maybe he'll slip one in there too when he's doing his semi-automatic tweeting. Okay, let's go back to the chart of the moment. Thanks for going down memory lane with me. I'm getting a little close. A little too close. Okay, here we go. Chart of the moment. You can do it. There we go. So here we are. And in true Piscean Neptune on the getting closer to the ascendant fashion, actually Neptune's moving away. True Piscean fashion, of course, we've been traveling down the byways and the highways of the past and speculating on how and why things happened. If we bring it back to the timeline, it was my feeling that after doing the research, number one, that they had to do this in order to re-anchor the post-Kennedy timeline and continue with their next stage of dark occultation. And if you see what's gone on the planet in the last 18 years, you have no doubt that it wasn't just an event that, you know, managed to get a bunch of gold out of the bottom and have the Patriot Act basically abrogate the Constitution. Look at the world. Look at our post 9/11 world. I mean, it is fraught with symbolism, and symbolism is not a bad thing. You know, we look at symbols. Symbols are symbols. Sometimes they're interesting. You know, symbols sometimes will save your life. If you're driving down the highway and you don't pay attention to the symbol that's red on the side of the road, and you run through that symbol, there's a really good chance that something might happen to you. Right? So that's a really kind of minor sort of example. But look at where we've been. We've sort of evolved into this very, very, very dark, very kind of luciferic, very satanic, very, you know, Eye of Set, Eye of Horus kind of reality, and it's becoming just kind of more and more unabated, in our faces. And I do believe that 9/11 played a role in that, because it was an occult ritual. It was an occult ritual. And they were going to, of course, remake the Twin Towers into the new tower, which would be Nimrod's tower, the Tower of Babel, the Freedom Tower. I'm not even sure it's called the Freedom Tower anymore, is it? It's called the One World Trade Center again or something like that. But that's a giant telluric wand. A giant telluric wand to cast the spell across the land. To put us into a new spell. And that's exactly what they did. And we've been, the world, like I said, the world is very different. It's just very, very different. And we have been kind of been dropped into this sort of occult simulacra. And we see it all the time. You know, we see it in theater, we see it in movies, we see it. We sometimes see it in music videos if we're looking. I don't spend a lot of time with music videos, but I've seen a few pop videos, and sure enough, it's there. We even see it in our sports. It's reflected in our sports at times. It's really interesting. There's this guy named Antonio Brown who, as of Saturday was or Friday was playing for the Oakland Raiders, and as of Saturday was playing for the New England Patriots. And Antonio Brown he's another trickster. He's a Cancer, but he's got 3 planets in Gemini. He's got, I believe, Moon, Mercury, Venus in Gemini, if I'm not mistaken. I had his chart up. It basically, he acted like he was insane. He acted out. He was disruptive. He was disrespectful. All these things. Everybody around was saying he's bipolar. He's bipolar. He's bipolar. He's nuts. He's mad in the head. No, he wasn't. All he was doing was he was just practicing chaos magic. He knows about chaos magic. He knows exactly what he's talking about. So we see it in sports. We see it in sports. And he got involved with the Raiders, John Gruden and Mike Mayock, and he pushed him out. Antonio Brown is black, and Mike Mayock is white. He called Mike Mayock a cracker. So we have the polarity, and brothers even got involved as well. Derek Carr and David Carr, the Carr brothers. So we have 2 again. You see, I mean, it unfolds. Well, now he gets to play with the New England Patriots. Bob Kraft, by the way, is still not. Speaking of Geminis, another Gemini. Bob Kraft. People think, oh, you hate Gemini. I don't hate any sign, by the way. Please, I love all the signs. They're all great. They're all great. And I find Geminis to be fascinating. I've had a lot of Gemini friends. I've had some Gemini girlfriends. Some of them were actually possessed. I still like them. You haven't lived till you've gone out with a possessed woman before, let me tell you. Every moment is exciting, different. No, not really. Not really. Anyway, it's happened. Ever since 9/11, we've been pushed into an occultation of reality. That's what's happened. Just think about it. Think about it. Hidden in plain sight. So what they did is they wanted to make sure that the timeline that they had disrupted with Kennedy was not only going to continue, but they were going to build on the edifice and the structure of it. Here's another Gemini, Donald Trump. He's a player. Donald Trump knows about 9/11. He knows who did it. He knows exactly who did it. He knows everything about 9/11. No way he's going to be spilling any beans, unless, of course, he lets those little Twitter fingers get a little out of control. So here we go. Getting back to the chart of the moment, you have to swim through this Neptunian opposition to the sun, Neptunian opposition to Mercury yesterday and Friday. So I put this post up on Facebook. Oh, you know what I'm going to do? We're going to look at Greta Thunberg's chart tonight. I got Greta Thunberg and I've got Bernie Sanders teed up. So on Friday night, I believe it was Friday night, I put a post up on Facebook about Greta Thunberg and her handler, this woman named Louisa Marie Neubauer, and she is with her. This Neubauer is with her at all these events. Wherever Greta Thunberg is, Louisa Marie Neubauer is shadowing her. And it's because she's her handler and she works for Soros and she works for that apparatus of the global management team. And I do believe that Soros is a bagman for the Rothschilds. I've never really felt like Soros was an entity unto himself. Like, I'm not sure he had that much power. And if the Rothschilds, who I believe would be in opposition to Soros, if they didn't like his plans, if they didn't like his goals to subvert the Constitution of the United States, erase our borders, and turn our kids into training unicorn fairies, they'd take him out. They would take him out. They'd wipe him out financially. They'd do something. George Soros wouldn't exist. The media wouldn't peddle him, even if he's still alive, right? I mean, so I don't think he's an entity in that way unto himself. He's kind of like the Mandarin in Iron Man. And I do think you go back, you follow the tracks, he's going to be kind of in the Rothschild pocket. So that means that the Rothschilds are probably also on the left too. Not probably. They're running both games. They are. They're running both games. They're running the left game. They're running the right game. They don't care as long as their properties and their assets are being managed and increased as a result. Anyway, so this Louisa Marie Neubauer, she's Greta's handler. And they exposed this, right? This post exposed it, talked about who she was, who she worked for, Soros's various tendrils into Greta Thunberg's world, Tides Foundation, a lot of other stuff too. There's this group that is it's about time. We don't have much time. We're running out of time. It's called We Don't Have Much Time, or how much time? Let me find that thing. Find this thing. Anyway, they're the ones that are kind of specifically promoting her. Let me just do this time thing. Time. Let's do this. We are running out of time. We are running out of time. The rebellion has begun. Let's see. Speeches. There's speeches that she's given. My God. Greta Thunberg quotes hope. Greta Thunberg, TED Talk, speech quotes. I want you to panic. Why? Why should we panic? Why should we panic? When we panic, it takes us out of our divine signal. Let me just do this one more time. Let me see. The group, there's a specific group, the manufacturing of Greta Thunberg. There we go. Can't believe it. It's on the front page of the search results. The manufacturing of Greta Thunberg for consent, the inconvenient truth behind youth co-optation. You know, this children's crusade all got started when this Parkland thing took off. And they got into the exploitation of children. We don't have time. That's the name. That's the name of the group. Ingmar Rentzhog. That's the head of We Don't Have Time. You got to see this symbol for we don't have time. I'm going to show you the symbol. Here we go. All right. So I'm just going to do a share screen and show you their. It's supposed to look like a clock or a watch, you know. There's their website. We don't have time. Together, we are the solution to the climate crisis. Used to be global healing. That's their symbol. What does that look like? What does that symbol look like? Just get that symbol in your head for a minute. Okay? I'll show you what I think that symbol looks like. Just right there. We don't have time. We don't have time. Keep it, hold it. Some of you probably already got this. I'll just throw it up here anyway. Come on now. Come on now. I'm just going to share this whole screen. Okay. Here is what I think the symbol looks like. It's the hammer and the sickle. If you look at it, you can see like the little sickle thing coming off the edge, right? And that little was it the 11 minutes to midnight, 11:55 to midnight, or wherever that thing is at the top. Looks like a hammer and a sickle. I think it's kind of intentional, since we're living in the symbolic world. Anyway, so I posted that up there. I posted that story on her up there, and picture this woman, Louisa Marie Neubauer. And then, you know, people are like looking at checking it out. And then this woman comes in. She's a Facebook friend of mine, but nobody that really ever really comments on my posts. Although one or two times she commented on something, and I remember going to her Facebook page thinking, why am I friends with this person? You ever have that moment? You ever have that Facebook moment? You go to their page, you go, ooh. You know, it's like, okay, well, I guess we're friends. But yeah, you know, as long as, you know, you're in your world, I guess you know, you can be a statistic on my page, or Mark Zuckerberg's computer, or whatever, the NSA. So she came onto my thread last night. Man, she was flaming. She was spitting fire. She called me a liar. She she said that what happened to the new age? It was like somehow she'd assumed that I was like some kind of new age guy. What happened to the new age? You've been taken over by the dark forces. I'm like, no, I haven't been taken over by the dark forces. What I'm trying to do is trying to show people that this girl who has Asperger's is being manipulated. She's being manipulated and led around by her little pigtails, by adults who are exploiting her for money, for power, for prestige, and pushing a paradigm down our throats that has not been scientifically proven. Even whatever science is, like, right, if there's heating going on, it's happening in the solar system. And by the way, we're actually going into a solar minimum. And by the way, if they really, 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 really want to tackle something, they may want to tackle like the insane amounts of methane that's coming up out of the sea, out of the ocean, and from the permafrost. That's actually kind of a big deal. Like, there are things, real things that they could wrap their heads around, you know? Like they could wrap their heads around 5G if they wanted to. If they wanted to get all climate-y, it could be 5G. Or they could wrap their heads around all the insane amounts of plastics in our ocean, or plastics in our belly, or what's, you know, basically the bug spray in the sky every day. But no, these people won't even, and some of those are kind of extreme. Plastic in the ocean is extreme. But no, they've just got to trot out this tired, absolutely tired kind of script. But this person couldn't see it. She couldn't see it. And, you know, I was like, you know, I wasn't really feeling like the compassion vibe that much. Yeah, a couple of days. I just wasn't. It was like, you know, I tried to be, but I came in. It's like, you know, you call me a liar, you know? And it's like, why? What, liar? What are you talking about? You know, I mean, that's like, and this is a person who's a light worker and supposedly not judgmental, okay? To come in and call me a liar is pretty judgmental. I'm a liar. And I've been taken over by the dark forces. Anyway, so it got hashed out. And to her credit, she was right in there, sticking her nose in there, and was happy to tell me that she was a Leo. I'm a Leo. Well, so what? So what? Doesn't matter. I'm a Virgo, and technically speaking, my sign's higher than yours. How about that? So I outrank you. This is not true, but I could have said that. She's going on, and I kept asking, so, you know, again, do you think George Soros is dark? She wouldn't answer my question. She did what liberals do, or people that have a liberal leaning slant. They don't answer the question. They'll obfuscate, they'll create all kinds of, you know, different scenarios, tableaus, whatever, right? And throw in their feelings somewhere along the way. Of course, that's important, the feeling thing. That didn't answer the question. Then she said, I'm for Bernie Sanders. I am for the revolution. And she is a beautiful young girl who has superpowers. And all these people came onto the thread. Some of them were very nice. Kudos to you. I did my best to be nice. But then she started to, you know, talk a little bit of smack about some people, friends. And I was gonna allow that. It turned into a perfect storm of Neptune opposing these Virgo planets. Okay? Because here we're trying to get to, you know, some level of objective reality, even though that's not always easy to do. Looking at where the money's going, where the money's coming from, what the intention is, you know, where the group think is, where the mindset is, who the players are. I mean, all that stuff. And you can look at that. It's a Virgo thing. I do it all the time. And yet I'm dealing with somebody who was living in a Neptunian cloud and couldn't see it. And if you hit them over the head with it, we still weren't going to see it. And this is a person who is a light worker, you know, probably somebody who influences people, you know. And it's like, it was really interesting because that was the fog, that was the cuckoo cloud land of the Neptune, Sun, Mercury opposition. And it was very interesting too, because people were stepping back and looking at this exchange. And they were going on and looking at it and going, wow, you know, this is interesting. You know, why, you know, this is bringing up a lot of stuff for people, and so on and so on and so on. You know, kind of got into that Neptunian place of, look at all what's going on here. You know, let's swim around. Let's swim around in the phenomena for a bit. You know, and then there are other people who just were bolting down. And it all culminated with my buddy Chuck, who put a hashtag fuck Greta Thunberg. It's like, whoa, gotta put an exclamation on it. Anyway, we're in that phase right now, okay? So be really careful on some level. You know, don't allow yourself to get into a conversation that you'll get dragged down in over the next week or so. I mean, you just got to be, especially with that Mars Neptune opposition that's coming. That's like heavy. It's like heavy victim stuff. You know? It's like heavy victimization, and that's scapegoating, big time scapegoating. seems to be a lot of that going on. Yeah, I was talking with a friend of mine, client friend, the other night, and lives in New York City, has a house, apartment, and living with people that are gaslighting her. And I'm like, wow. And this goes back to things like mobbing. I had another client, a few months back, come to me, and she told me that she was, experiencing this thing called mobbing, where it's kind of like a version of gang stalking in the workplace. And I looked it up, and there were books written about it, and it was mind blowing to see stuff like that. So with the Mars Neptune opposition, some of these things might come more into some kind of fuzzy focus. But the thing is that I think and me being Mr. Virgo, I'm sure I'm going to have to deal with this in my own personal life, which I'm probably not really looking forward to, but it's the way it is. Wherever Virgo is showing up in your chart, you're going to have to pay attention where Pisces is over the next couple days, so that you can navigate, kind of where we are. So this is a very critical time in a lot of ways. Very critical time. I think perhaps the one thing that can come out of this is that there may be some opportunity for some level of forgiveness. Because I was trying again. It's like, what do I have to win? What do I have to get out of this by trying to win this situation? And I really wasn't trying to win the situation. I was actually trying to have a conversation. Trying to, can you see this? Can you see this? And there was none of that going on. So, I feel like the kind of the best case scenario for this is to kind of maybe be a little softer on the Mars aspect. Maybe be a little softer, not too soft, so that you give up your Mars and give your so-called power away. But don't take the sword out unless you're going to use it. The old samurai adage. Okay, let's get back to the week ahead. Just real quick, and we'll drop into some of these charts, and I'll check in with you guys in chat. All right, so yeah, real strong action here. We've got the sun this week is going to be moving closer into orb, right? So it is approaching. It's approaching Pluto. Right now, we got a Pluto Moon conjunction tonight. That's intense. That's a powerful conjunction. Capricorn Moon is not an easy assignment in life. I don't know. Maybe this is why I can speak a little dispassionately about some of the things, at least tonight. Maybe it's the Capricorn Moon, but there is a lot of concentration here, concentration and consecration, because we can have the Capricornian kind of goal in mind, and there's plenty of Virgo there to back it up. So don't get lazy, right? Don't get lazy. Don't rest on your laurels. Don't get caught in the sort of the whirlpool of the Jupiter-Neptune square, or even Jupiter squaring off against those Virgo planets, right? Like, the goal here would be have a vision, but then lock it in with Saturn and Pluto over the next few days. It's a good time. Get shit done. Get stuff done. Take care of your health, and try not to overextend yourself. And I would say, during this time specifically, you need to watch out for intoxicants. Any kind of intoxicant, I think, could be tricky during this time. So whether you're, this is interesting too, right? This is another kind of mundane event. Just the last couple days, there's been a pretty intense and concerted effort to ban e-cigarettes. Now, I don't use an e-cigarette. I know people that do use e-cigarettes, but apparently they get this thing called popcorn lung, which it probably does happen. But the amount of people that have popcorn lung is, I don't know. I don't know what the percentage is. There's a lot of people get lung cancer every year, and they still smoke cigarettes and they still sell them. But anyway, this is a kind of, what is it? What do you do? You're vaping. What is vaping? It's a liquid. And, what's it attached to? Well, theoretically health with all these planets in Virgo. So now there's this big push to begin to ban e-cigarettes. That just came out in the last few days with the Neptune opposition, the Sun and Mercury and Venus. Venus is the lungs, represents, let me see, there's two. Actually, Mercury is the lungs, Gemini, Mercury. Venus can play a bit of a role, but it's more the two. So actually, it's closer here with Mercury in opposition to Neptune. So it's an interesting mundane event, but watch out for any kind of intoxicants. Make sure you get enough water. You know, if you're fasting, get enough water. It could be a good time to purify your diet. It may not be a bad time to purify it. It could be a good time to go on a bit of a cleanse. Don't overdo it. Don't push yourself. You know, take your time. Be measured. But definitely watch out for the intoxicants. And sometimes intoxicants aren't always things like liquor, spirits, alcohol, drugs. Sometimes intoxicants are related to our habits. It can be, you know, what goes on online, our participation in it, foods, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Just keep an eye out for it during this time. By and large, I like the energy this week. We got the Grand Trine. Innovate and participate. Innovate and administrate. Even if it's your own life, innovate and administrate. Those are the themes for the week ahead, okay? All right, let me check in with you guys as we take a little bit of a break here. And I'm gonna get into Bernie's chart and Greta's chart, and then probably, oh, it's 9/11, about that. Call it a night. Let me see where you guys are at. We got 34 people watching now. Is that all? No, usually we have more. That's a low number. It's a really low number. No, it's not Venus. No, it's not Venus. I made a correction, course correct. I had Mercury in my head, but I saw Venus. Mercury, that's right, I said Mercury. Yes, if you listen, I correct myself. All right, here we go, 114. Oh, that's good. Maybe looking at an old version. Thanks, John. Yeah, I made a course correction there. It's Mercury, because I saw Venus next to Mercury in the chart. Okay, where else? Where is everybody here? Where is everybody? Just get back in. Here we go. All right, there we go. We've got 113 people watching. So what are your thoughts? 9/11, the Neptune Sun opposition. Did I read, you always ask me if I read your comments, Mary. Let me go back in time. I read your comments on YouTube. Did you put them on YouTube, on another post? I have read your comments before. I have read your comments. Yes, fasting day, 112 watching. We're all over the place. Thanks for the positive advice. I have read your comments. My friend's car caught on fire yesterday at Polo's Tropical Kitchen. Went up in flames today here. Wow. Yeah, Mercury rules lungs. Venus a little more akin to Mons. Venus, okay. Yeah, sorry, I saw Venus in Mercury there. Is Kratom okay? Is Kratom okay? I think Kratom's okay. In fact, I just took some about 90 minutes ago. No, Kratom's all right. I think Kratom is interesting. Kratom is interesting. During this time, I don't know. But I think Kratom is really interesting. I think Kratom actually repatterns your brain. That's what I've heard. Okay. You guys got any questions besides my minor fuck up over Venus and Mercury, which I quickly corrected myself with? You want to hear about more 9/11 sacrifice? Okay. Well, they sacrificed how many people? They sacrificed a lot of people. What was it, 2,000 people? People died. People died in 9/11, right? That's a major, major sacrificial moment. People died. Just from that perspective, the group of people who had a plan and initiated a plan were engaged in the sacrifice of what, 2,000 plus people, right? I don't have the number in front of me. That's one level of a sacrifice. It's pretty significant. Second level of our sacrifice is sacrificed our country and our Constitution. The United States was sacrificed on 9/11. Why was it sacrificed? Because days after 9/11, the Patriot Act was rolled out. It was cooked up and ready to go. Abrogates the Constitution. So the United States itself was sacrificed. As a result of that, our freedoms were sacrificed. It was much easier to obtain things like FISA warrants and begin to spy on people. There was no more need to prove or cause for war. Strikes could be preemptive. So a restraint was sacrificed. The need to go to Congress to actually prove war, sacrificed as well. We've been in any number of wars since 9/11. We sacrificed due process along the way. You know, there was a call to war to go to Afghanistan, I guess to go to Iraq. And after that, it was like, you know, who needs that shit? Yeah, we can have a war in Libya. Oh yeah, we can have a war in Syria. Oh yeah, we can have a war in Yemen. Oh yeah, we can have war wherever we want to have a war. So that was sacrifice, right? Due process was sacrificed. So any number of things were sacrificed. History was sacrificed in a lot of ways, or at least that historical moment was sacrificed. And it, again, my explorations around the date, it's the date that, a lot of you say, well, no, Jesus didn't exist. Okay, I don't, yes, I know, there's like Apollo and all these people, right? Edgar Cayce seemed to think that Jesus existed, and a lot of people think Edgar Cayce's, is just the bee's knees, and I think Edgar Cayce has a lot of stuff. It's really, really good, especially the stuff around the Essenes and how that whole thing happened, right? And, so I do believe that there was a historical character, and I do believe that this historical character performed a absolutely metatastic event and did something on the planet that changed everything. And my research shows that that individual was born in 9/11, okay, 9/11. So again, if we take everything into account, that theoretically is his birthday, then that is a sacrifice. Certainly it's a sacrilege. It's a sacrilege. And is it a sacrifice? Possibly. Or perhaps it's a sacrifice, like in the same way that there's the cremation of care, the sacrifice, or the 33rd degree, where you do the same thing, right? You're supposed to go in and you're supposed to plunge a knife into your past beliefs, and that you are no longer tethered, to the God that you prayed to and studied and learned and loved from growing up. Now there's a new God, and there's a new set of rules. Right? In order to do that, you have to sacrifice the old. And so if that is indeed that day, then it would have been an alchemical sacrifice. So it would be a birthday and a death day simultaneously, or a day that would be a sacrilege, which is related to sacrifice. So we have sacrifice on a number of different levels. I think that's pretty clear. No? Is that right? Okay, let's see what else. Anything else in chat? Jesus is Lord. My brother died a month ago. Oh, poor, Scoobs. Cheeky Monkey. I got an email from Cheeky Monkey not long ago, and out of the blue, her brother died. Just give her some love in the chat room. Just love her up a little bit. Such a hard thing when we lose people, especially people that were really. I'll tell you right now, death is going to start to become a big thing. Death, it's the new thing. Hey, have you heard about this new thing? No, what's it called? It's called death. Really? Yeah. Well, what's it about? I don't know, but it's the next big thing. No, seriously, death is gonna start to be kind of a big deal. And I think it has to do with the fact that the veils, the theoretical veils, are thinning. Are they really? And right now, with the Neptune opposition, these Virgo planets, it's kind of waffly there, kind of waffly. But I think the idea of death and passing is going to begin to get a hold of people's consciousness in a way, in a very immediate kind of way, because the world that we're living in is dying, not from some climate change bullshit, although, maybe, with the solar minimum, that might be part of the story. No, the death story is the death of our time. It is the death of in a lot of ways, our Western civilization. Some people say, yeah, well, just wait. Just wait till what comes after next. And you won't be cheering so loudly, trust me. So it's in the air. It is in the air. I'm going to bring this back to football. It's the 100th season of the NFL. 100 is a big number. It's a big deal. And just before the season started, there's a quarterback who plays for it. He's a Virgo. Plays for the Indianapolis Colts. And his name is Andrew Luck. And in the final preseason game, he had announced before the game started, he was trying to get back from an injury, and he announced that he was going to retire. And it was a very big deal because he's a marquee player for the NFL. And he's one of those players that the NFL loves. His father played quarterback. He's white. Went to Stanford. He's kind of goofy. He's not going to say anything politically offensive. The NFL loved him. He played it for the Colts, same team Peyton Manning played for. And he announced his retirement. It was shocking. People were shocked. It was like a death in some ways. It was like he died. Like Andrew Luck is no longer a football player. He's dead. And when it happened, I felt very strange. And he didn't announce it before the season started. He kept saying, I got something wrong with my calf, And then it happened. It's gone. Very strange. So the name is very interesting, as in luck. I thought, this is going to be a very weird season for the NFL. It is going to be very strange. And then the first game last week between the Bears and the Packers, which was a total snooze fest. The total score was 13. 13 was the first and only score it was the first score of the season. 13. It was 10-3. 13. So this is the launch game, the marquee game. We have Luck quitting right before the season starts. In my estimation, bad luck, not good luck. That's bad luck. Good luck is when he stays. Bad luck is when he pulls the ripcord. So today, I was watching some of the games, and some of them were nuts. I mean, really nuts. Like, I have not seen such unabated aggression in some of these games. There were fights going in this one game, the Chiefs versus the Jaguars. Again, two weird things happened. Nick Foles, who it goes by 0. That's his number, 0. And what's interesting about Nick Foles is that he's a 0-degree Aquarius. And I thought, wow, I bet he doesn't know that. Because Nick Foles he's a big-time Christian. He's a great guy. Great guy. But he's got 0. He's a 0-degree Aquarian, which I thought was interesting. So you have Nick Foles, and then you have, he got hurt. Like early in the game, he got hurt, broke his clavicle. This is one of the NFL's good guys, broke his clavicle. Very religious dude. Almost went away to, almost quit football for seminary school. A couple plays later, a guy who plays for the Chiefs, Tyreek Hill, another star player for the NFL. got in an altercation with another player on the opposite team. He got thrown down. Now this gets really weird. He had to be taken away from. He walked off the field, but then he went to a hospital, and there was some kind of major complication with whatever happened with his shoulder, his spine, his neck, and they're very, very like hush hush about this thing. Like he's not going to. They say he's not playing for the next 6 weeks. Now Tyreek Hill is a guy that got serious trouble in the offseason. He got to like a weird thing with his baby mama and their kid and some kind of abuse stuff. It was a kind of a big deal. Wound up staying on the team. Well, he's out now. The whole thing was really strange. Like there's such a weird vibe in the NFL. And some people may say, well, so what? It's just sports and people running around tights. The NFL is connected into a lot of people and a lot of people's consciousness. So, maybe you don't want to watch the NFL this season. I don't know. I don't think it's that extreme. But it feels very canary coal mine like. Like it's coming to the end. Like 100 is really a big deal, and like a new century. And we know what happened when the last century ended, right? And we've just been talking about it. Next year is 2020, and you have inside 2020, you have the Aeon twice. 20 and 20, double Aeon. That's judgment. Aeon is judgment. Then you add the twos together. Of course, you get 22, the master builder. Next year is going to be a big year. It's going to be a very big year, and death will not be a stranger to us. This idea, because we've been living in this dream that we could all live forever on some level, or this dream could go on forever. It's not going to go on forever. It's not going to go on forever. At some point, this thing is going to end. It's not going to end next year. It's probably not going to end the year after or the year after that. But the things that are associated with it, they're going to go. You'll see them. You'll see them drop off. Be another, until, guess what? 4, 5, 6 years from now, a lot of the things we took for granted, they're not going to be around anymore. People that we took for granted are not going to be around anymore. Institutions we took for granted are not going to be around. I'm just telling you, it's where it's headed. Because that is ultimately the outcome of 9/11, is to decimate that world, that story, that chapter, and create a new one. And the new one is based on a monolithic structure. And the monolithic structure is a structure that exists in space, but it also exists as an idea. And in order for that monolithic structure to be erected in our lives and, New York City, things have to go. They have to pass. They've been working on it. They've been hacking away. Started 2 years ago with the statues in the South, right? And it's just going to keep going and keep going and keep going. Just a little side. I got an email about changes in the Austin Unified School District. And the headline was, "Change is scary, but it's necessary." So I read on, right? What's going on here? And I read through the email, and basically they're going to be completely retrofitting the entire curriculum. Maybe it's not a bad thing. But then I began to read sort of where it's going, and they're going to be emphasizing social justice. They're going to be emphasizing it. They're going to be teaching classes in social justice. They talked about inequity, and they're not going to make the same mistakes again. You see where this is going? This is another version of something that's dying, right? schools, the curriculum. Some people always say, "Oh, that's great." Well, that's great. You know, look at what it produced. Well, it produced a system, for all its flaws, that was probably better than, at a large scale now, on a small scale, than just about any system we've ever seen. Better or worse? A lot of warts. A lot of warts. Don't get me wrong. It produced that. But you know where it's going. You know, they're going to basically say, we're not going to wait for your kids to get to college. We're going to get to your kids in high school. In fact, we're going to get to your kids in junior high. In fact, we're going to get to your kids in grade school. And the old way of learning, or the old curriculum, you know, those things that we learned about that are antiquated, they're going to go away. They're going to go away. Change is scary, but it's essential. See, this is what I'm talking about, right? That's what I'm talking about. And, you know, what are you going to do? You're going to go down there to Unified School District and call them out and saying, you're going to turn our kids into little Marxist punks, and they're going to turn against us, and they're going to hate us. We know you're going to do that. We know you're going to do that. This is what your game is, right? Oh, no, we would never do that. This is what's going to happen. They're not saying, hey, we're going to, you know, recreate our schools and give your kids, you know, the best technology, you know, and we're going to give them the opportunity to study abroad, or, you know, we're going to give them the opportunity to learn a trade if they want, with an emphasis on emerging maker skills. No, they're not saying any of that. They're saying, well, we're going to teach courses in gaming. What the fuck? Gaming? Are you serious? I swear to God, gaming was part of their curriculum. Gaming. So I'm talking about things dying. And we'll see more of it. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. So this idea of death is going to be with us more. And there'll be melancholy times. I'm telling you right now, there will be melancholy times. You know, and like a wave, it'll pass through you. It'll pass through you. But on the other side of all this, right, on the other side is that ultimately you get to really find out who you are here. You do. You do. There's ground zero for finding out who you are. And the unfoldment of, you know, your meta story. We've all got one. So give Scoobs a little bit of love in there. Cheeky monkey, love her up a little bit. And gotta take care of each other. Okay, let's move on to how about Bernie? Bernie. That gal on Facebook, I'm into the revolution. I'm into the revolution. Doesn't she know? See, people are so, they're so ignorant, and they're so confused. You know, when Kamala Harris, or, you know, any of these people start talking about their programs, oh, we'll get the money. We'll get the money. Oh yeah, we'll get the money. Don't worry. Where are they going to get the money? You know where they're going to get the money? They're going to take everything. They're going to take everything. They're going to nationalize everything. And all of a sudden they get everything in their coffers now. Oh, just look, we got all this real estate and all these houses. And we got everybody else's money too. Oh, look at that. Your money isn't your money anymore, because your money's got to go pay for all this shit that we're going to do. Oh, your house, that's not your house anymore. Sorry. Well, I'm just renting my house. Well, you know what? Your house belonged to a landlord, and it's not his house anymore. So you got to go. That's Bernie's world. I'm telling you. He's a dyed-in-the-wool commie. He hasn't moved off of that from day fucking one, okay? And the majority of the left are commies. They are. That's what they've moved towards. That's what the new message is, right? Trump is not a commie, but his daughter probably is. All right, let's get into Bernie's chart. I love using the word commie. It is just like commie. Just brings up like, you know, red baiting in the 1950s. It's so kind of cheesy. It's commie. All right, here we go. Booty. Now I don't know his birth time. I just gave him, you know, I usually go sunrise ascendant, 7 a.m. You know, Bernie's got a little fire in him. You know, he's got Mars in Aries, and he's got Moon in Aries. You know, his Mars and Aries though need a little bit of an upgrade, right? When he went to go hit that speed bag and it hit him back, you know, he went like this. He hit it with his right. And of course, the big media comeback was Bernie should have led with his left. You know, so he's got, you know, Bernie's got a little bit of a fighter in him. He's got a fighter in him. You know, he's got a Mars Moon conjunction in Aries, part of fortune. And, you know, sextile to Jupiter. You know, this is not his birth time. So, you know, he does have some feistiness. Bernie's a feisty guy, right? And look, he's got a Uranus-Saturn conjunction. And I've always thought that Uranus is probably, you know, the Uranus and Neptune for different reasons is a planet that I would associate with kind of radical communism. You know, because the Bolshevik Revolution happened when Uranus was in Aquarius. So to me, it's a fit. You know. Kill the king. That's what they did. And the king is astrologically Leo. Revolutions are astrologically Aquarian. That's the way the game works, right? So what we have here is he's got Uranus and he's got a conjunct Saturn. So he's been working a long time to implement Uranus into his life. He's an old commie. Saturn in Taurus, Uranus in Gemini. I think Bernie would love to lift the money. First of all, you know, I'm not sure corporate America would allow Bernie within 30 feet of the White House, maybe 100 feet, maybe 300 feet. But I'll tell you this, after corporate America had their roundtable about 2 weeks ago, they may sit down and have a conversation with him. They may sit down and have a conversation and say, look, you want a plan? You want to be president? You want to be socialist? Let us run the show. And we'll give you a nice little hybrid model of socialism and government you could wrap your head around. And you could be right up there with your idols, Stalin and Mao and Trotsky and Lenin. And they would get behind him. Corporate globe would like nothing more on some level now to move to, guess what? Out of the 10th house. Out of the 10th house, because that's where they do their business. They want to move to the 11th house. Except they don't want to just be there with everybody else. They want to dominate the 11th house. They want to become the ruling body, right? And the elite of the 11th house. They want to dominate the next phase, which is theoretically the age of Aquarius. Right? They're going to rebrand themselves. They know this. They know that they can't go on and be these Capricornian oligarchs, masters of business. No, they have to rebrand themselves because they are going to be taking their model into the 11th house. That's what's going to happen. And they'll say, Bernie, yeah, you can be president, but we're going to forge a new partnership, forge a new bond. You better shut the fuck up about corporations because we're the new sheriff in town. And yeah, you can take away people's property. That's fine. It's more for us. We'll manage and run the whole thing because, you know, government's inept. Okay, so what else does he have? He's got a Neptune-Mercury conjunction, which basically means to me that I think Bernie believes is bullshit. I really think that. Neptune-Mercury conjunction, he believes is bullshit. And you've got the square to, it's like a wide square, right? 7 degrees. Yes, I don't know, that works. Square to Jupiter. Jupiter always inflates and conflates. And then he's got a Jupiter Sun square. And you know, people have Jupiter Sun squares can bite off more than they can chew. It's like they have really good ideas, but making them practical isn't always easy. Bernie's got a fair amount of Earth, Saturn in Taurus, Sun at 15 degrees, Virgo, Neptune in Virgo. He loves that working class, doesn't he? Sun, Neptune conjunction in Virgo. He loves that work. He's never worked a day in his fucking life. Easy money for a Virgo. And let's see, he's got a Pluto-Chiron conjunction. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. He's got an interesting relationship with power. And he's got a Pluto sextile to Mercury. Yeah, I could see that. He's got a Venus trine Jupiter. People in Venus have Venus Jupiter trines generally have lives of luxury. And Bernie's never sweated. He's got like 3 homes. Yeah, he's got money. Bernie's got money. He's got a Venus opposition to Mars. The hawk and the dove. You know, he says he's an anti-war candidate. I'm not so sure. He did vote against the Iraq war, didn't he? He was on record with that, right? So maybe with a Venus-Mars opposition, he could put a lot of effort, a lot of energy towards peace. Or maybe he could be the hawk and then the dove and then the hawk and the dove. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think he's going to be president. I've heard a Sanders-Warren ticket with Sanders as the vice president and Warren as the president. I've also been hearing the rumblings of a Hillary-Warren ticket as well, with Warren as the vice president and Hillary as the candidate coming in from the cold. But Bernie doesn't have any water in his chart. Have you noticed that? He doesn't have any water. You know, it's really interesting. When I watch him and listen to him, you know, kind of see into him, at least when he's speaking publicly, he's very like, he's just very three-dimensional. You know, he bangs the same bullet points over and over again, you know, with that Mars and Aries. But I don't know. There's not a lot of depth there. I mean, I don't get there's a lot of depth. I'm sure he could sit down and, you know, school my ass in identity politics. I have no doubt about that. But I don't know. He just seems, he's a caricature, you know. You wind him up and he goes. You wind him up and he goes. I don't know. I don't think Virgos make good presidents. I just don't. The last Virgo we had was Johnson, and he was terrible. Just flat out terrible. And I'm a Virgo, and I want to stick up for my sign, but I just don't think it's a good sign to be a president. And he probably is much better as being like a senator or whatever he is, Senator Bernie Sanders. Anyway, that's Bernie. I'm just looking at the planets and some of the aspects. I think he promises more than he can deliver. Clearly, I think he believes his bullshit with the Mercury-Neptune conjunction, squaring Jupiter, unrealistic. He's totally unrealistic. And I think he likes nice things. I think he likes money. I think he likes, you know, his little luxuries with the Venus-Jupiter trine. And I think ultimately he would love to have that Saturn-Uranus conjunction manifest, where he could anchor this radical or revolutionary idea. We'll see. We've got some ground ahead of us. Where's his true node? It's in Virgo. Yeah, he may get a little of a bump right now, right? Mars is there, Sun's there. He may get a little bump. But yeah, I don't think he's got the right stuff. Not even astrologically. Okay. Let's do one more chart. Let me just check. What do you guys think of Bernie? What do you think of Bernie? By the way, you don't get Trump. You know, come on, Mary. I get Trump's Gemini. Okay, maybe I don't. Okay, sorry. I don't get Trump's. I've only studied this chart for a long period of time. I know. He does wacky things. He's a disruptor. He is a disruptor. Trump is a disruptor. He'll do things. He'll push people in one area. He'll be two-faced, and he'll say things to appease people. He'll launch missiles into Syria, into bullshit places to get people to think he's actually. I know these things. Okay, I know these things. I get it. I think his Gemini is fascinating. It's a fascinating Gemini. You know, I think it's fascinating. If you go back and you listen to everything I've ever said about Trump, you know, sometimes I'm always curious about his relationship with people like Jeffrey Epstein, and not just Jeffrey Epstein, but the Chabad gang and the loan he had to take on to bail his ass out of bankruptcy. Yeah, in his relationship with Wilbur Ross, who is a bagman for the Rothschilds. I'm interested in these things. And at the same time, Mary, I also know that all the other presidents that we've had have been corrupt or they've been compromised. So I don't hold the presidency with such high regard. You know, if somebody who is president can make it interesting and throw a few monkey wrenches into the mix, why not? And if that's his sun Uranus conjunction, then so be it. And if he manages to, take John Bolton and put him in freeze, great, fantastic. I am, however, not going to support this HARPA bullshit that they want to put on the table. I get Trump's Gemini, but Mary, you're way more qualified than I am. So you can educate the chat room. Here's what I think, right? I think with Trump's Gemini, like, I can get into it and you can get into it and people get into it and we can make these associations. At the end of the day, nobody fucking knows, okay? Don't know. You don't know. Like Jeffrey Epstein, you don't know. He's gone. He's gone. I think he's alive, and I have other people who corroborate that. But you don't know. You don't know what, you know what he's doing. He knows too many people. He's too hot. It's never going to happen. They're not going to kill him anyway. His dead man switches. Look, we can get to these points where we can, use our tools at our disposal. We can make cognitive leaps, and sometimes it's good. And anybody can make them, right? Anybody can. I'm not the only guy that makes cognitive leaps. Everybody makes them. A lot of other people do YouTube shows. A lot of talented people in the chat room. But to say that I don't get his Gemini, I think would be Neptune opposition the sun. Once again. Okay. All right. Trigger alert. Here comes Greta Thunberg's chart. Here comes Greta. And along came Greta. Hey, I'm waiting for Trump to surprise me. I'm waiting for blow some shit on 9/11, Don. Just like you were threatening to do during the primaries. A little bushy. Okay, come on. Where is she? And along came Greta. Greta. Where are you, Greta? Okay, I have to go to my I must go to my other source. That's not my other source. Give me 1 second. I didn't get Trump's Gemini. Yeah, maybe I don't. Okay, here we go. Oh, let's see, we got here. Let's see. Let me get into, I got all these windows open. Hold on. Okay. And along came Greta. I feel sorry for the kid. I feel like she's just getting played. Getting played, everybody's just celebrating her and tossing her around. It's like exploitation. It's like really high exploitation. It's unfortunate people can't see it. Oh, she's a superstar. Yeah, people, you know what they want? People want a younger version of themselves
to reemerge victorious. That's what people, I think, desperately want. They see in young people this part of their past that is this kind of, it's more than a memory. It's almost like a phantom, you know. It's like a phantom, and it was a part of their lives that maybe they felt disempowered or powerless. And you know, because when we're young, we kind of have a sense of what the truth is on some level, or at least we can smell the bullshit. And people like Greta and David Hogg, you know, they reignite people's imaginations about that time in their lives, and they take on this almost kind of, you know, kind of quasi-heroic sort of place, so that people can maybe live through that objectively. I've seen it. They've got this sunrise movement. Oh my God, please. Please. All right, here we go. Now, I have to be careful because I need to speak respectfully about Greta's chart. Because number one, she is a girl, young woman, right? Number two, she dealing with Asperger's. Number three, well, it's just good to be kind. All right. So this is really interesting. When I look at her chart, what I'm seeing, again, this is just a sunrise chart. She's got that Venus-Mars conjunction, just like our old pal, Jeffrey Epstein. Different sign, obviously, Scorpio here. But the Venus-Mars conjunction tends to be charismatic. You know, it has this interesting inborn charisma in a lot of ways. And so she's got it. She's got that for sure. And Scorpio is powerful, but look, it's all being compromised on some level, right? Square to Jupiter. You know, she has Jupiter in Leo. And that's the Leo's the sign of the youth. And she's got a very powerful sort of Jupiterian signature. You know, it's conjunct her, well, it's not conjunct her vertex because that's based on this rising sign. But Jupiter is in trine with Pluto in her chart. That's a pretty powerful trine, to be honest with you. It's a powerful, powerful trine. I think somebody's tapping into it, you know, and then they're not sitting around saying, oh, well, you know, Greta's got that Jupiter-Pluto trine, you know, we need to turn Greta out, get her onto this global thing. I just think that that inherently it's kind of in there, you know, because I think even though, like, I feel like you could manufacture a personality for a while, and it could, that personality could exist for a while, but if it stayed around too long and didn't have some depth or some soul, it would ultimately, even in our plastic world, it would eventually kind of evaporate and go away. That said, with a Jupiter-Pluto trine in a chart, it speaks to the power of youth. It speaks to the power of childhood. And it speaks to the power of reaching other children. It's in her chart. You know, she organized a school strike, or at least, you know, she got people, or people assisted her in organizing the school strike. Interesting chart. So it's there, right? They're tapping into it. Tapping into it. They're tapping into something. And Mars in Scorpio, by the way, is quite powerful as well. Very, very powerful. And with a Venus-Mars conjunction, it's very hard to knock this person off their block because it's a fixed sign. And once she's committed to something, because Venus represents commitment, with Mars there, Scorpio, it's full on. The in conjunct with Saturn is very interesting because Saturn to me represents the adults in our life. You know, Saturn to me represents the forces that guide her, at least at this point in time. And there's a relationship with these forces. She's got Saturn in Gemini. You know, this has to do again with going back to 9/11. This is 2 years after 9/11, so Saturn was still in Gemini at that time. So she is a child that was born out of the, I don't know, I wouldn't say the memory of 9/11, but out of the reverberations of 9/11. And, you know, she's going to, you know, that Venus-Mars conjunction square Uranus, that to me, that's just like a very unusual signature, especially with Uranus and Aquarius. She's one of these kids that was born with, she has Uranus and Aquarius and Neptune and Aquarius and Pluto and Sag. So the first wave of those kids, you know, has Uranus in Aquarius. Next year, 2004, goes into Pisces. And I know that because it's when my son was born, is Uranus in Pisces. So she's part of a kind of a different wave of these Pluto and Sag kids. They're from like 96 to 2003. They tend to be kind of radical, you know, they're kind of radical because of Neptune and Uranus. And she's got a Neptune, what's Neptune doing? Opposition to Jupiter. To me, that Neptune-Jupiter opposition is that could be challenging, you know? It's completely unrealistic. Neptune-Jupiter opposition is it's like tilting at windmills. Like, what's real with a Jupiter-Neptune opposition? And Jupiter has got that inconjunct going on with her moon. It's her mother. Her mother is a big player in her life. Big player. She's born on a new moon, and she's got Chiron conjunct her sun. So to me, the Chiron sun conjunction is interesting because based on the Asperger's piece, she's wounded, right? She's wounded. Chiron sun conjunction. She's wounded. And I would say that on some level that the girl could be a healer with a Chiron sun conjunction. But the other thing with the Chiron sun conjunction is that because of her wound, that Saturnian and Capricornian types can get inside of her. You see, that's where Saturn is right now. Saturn's been around her sun, it's been around her Chiron. And, you know, she's really sort of come of age and popped on the scene when Saturn went into Capricorn because it began to conjunct these planets. And that's probably the time that her Saturnian handlers, lords and masters, got into her wound, her psychic wound, and, you know, the wound of her youth in a lot of ways. She's going through quite a bit. You know, she's got Pluto also there. It's been around her moon. There's a lot happening with that stellium. And the South Node is getting very close to her sun, which is a bit shaky, I think. And I wonder how long she's going to have. I mean, look, Mars in Scorpio has the potential for a lot of energy. And she's got a sextile with Mars to the moon and Venus to the moon. Very emotional. She's a very emotional girl in a lot of ways for Capricorn. But I would be a little bit concerned with her with that South Node coming in around her sun. South Node's at 15. You know, coming at Chiron. And by the end of the year, I'd be concerned about her health. Seriously. And mostly, I'd say maybe mental health. Identity. You know, it's interesting too, is, you know, because she has Asperger's and she's got this Mars-Venus conjunction. Like, what would happen if Greta Thunberg all of a sudden said, you people are liars. You know, you people are liars. You people are manipulating me. You know, I've been on the internet. You know, do you think she's capable of this, right? I mean, maybe they'd have a problem on their hands, in which case she'd get sick. And Greta's retiring. Greta's given her service. You know, she's given us all a great gift. You're playing with fire here, to be honest with you. That's what I think. I do. Because with that south node on her sun and her Chiron, is she going to just all of a sudden go, oh, you know, I saw the light? Nope. There's a big eclipse coming in December, and it's going to happen right around her planets. December 25th, December 26th. I'm going to go on the record. I'm going to say 2020 is going to be a very different year for Greta Thunberg and her family. I would not be surprised if we hear less of Greta Thunberg in 2020. Just my 2 cents. My 2 cents. I think it's a chart where she's dealing with a lot of really unrealistic stuff, you know, with Jupiter opposing Neptune. But she's got some juice with the Jupiter Pluto trine and with kids, and they've figured it out. They've tapped into it, and they're working their magic, right? They're working their magic. And she has the South Node in Sagittarius, you know, which is difficult, I think, for, you know, I mean, she's got the true node in Gemini. She's spewing a script in a lot of ways, I think. And I'm sure she's bright and has looked at stuff. But that South Node in Sagittarius, that's the Achilles heel in her chart. I wish her well. I hope she wakes up. I hope she sees the light. I hope she has a safe and happy life. But I think she's being manipulated. I think the Chiron Sun conjunction and that new moon conjunct her sun, I think that's the gateway to Greta Thunberg. That's how you get inside her head. And they have found somebody who could be malleable. And maybe this is where her Asperger's comes into play. And if that's the case, then that's even kind of more criminal in a lot of ways. Wish you all the best, Greta, but watch yourself and around this upcoming eclipse. Could get a little heavy in the months after there for you. Because she's just going to come under more scrutiny. At some point, you know, people are going to say, you know, stop telling me to panic. Stop telling me to panic. You're 16 years old, and the people around you are capitalizing on you, and you're capitalizing on your exploitation, the exploitation of your emotional state. Because when somebody who's young says it's time to panic, and you know, because we're parental and we want to take care of our young people, you know, it's fucking manipulative. It's just manipulative. There are a lot of things we should be protecting our young people from. Let me tell you, there's quite a few of them out there. Rising Tides ain't one of them. Not in my book. Not in Obama's book either. He got himself a sweet oceanside place, right there, right on the coast of what, Massachusetts or Maine, right? I think it's Massachusetts. Nice place. Sea level though. Guess he's not reading the scientific journals. Okay, I'm gonna get on out of here. Say goodnight to you guys. Got a 2-hour run. Thank you for being here. In the meantime, I'll spend more time learning about Trump's Gemini. I'll see the light. I'll see the light. Like, I think he's interesting. I think he does stuff that can be very interesting. Don't get me wrong. There's a method to his madness at times. I get it. I just wish he shit can his son-in-law outside of the White House and his daughter as well. And you know, maybe get back to the business of doing things that could be really helpful, like stopping people from Central Africa from coming into this country who are not screened medically, who have come out of Ebola crises in places like the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and then setting up Ebola screeners at the airport. Like, maybe he could get on something like that. That would be great. Just tackle that. Try that. That'd be great. Try that. Work on that from a Gemini perspective. Okay. I'm out of here. Thank you very much, Chatlandia. You can find me over at robertphoenix.com. Okay. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to stay open to what's possible. Thank you for being here. I can't have a show without you. I am having an event in October. Just had a new sign up. I've got maybe about 20 spots left. I'm going to be there. Emily Moyer, who I do chats with, right? Mashes. Emily knows a lot about physical healing. She's going to be there. Glenn Streeter and his magical medical devices are going to be there. He's going to be there. The Crimmies, whom you all know and love, are going to be there. Joan Sefcik, who is one of the top biological dentists in the country, anti-fluoride advocate. She's going to be there. And my buddy Stephen Kent is going to be there. We're going to have a didgeridoo concert in Fredericksburg. And we're going to go hike around Enchanted Rock. We're going to do yoga by Enchanted. Look, it's going to be fun. We got barbecue. We got Tex-Mex. We got surf and turf. We got clean water. It's going to be a blast. So please come. Go to my website, robertphoenix.com, Harvest Moon Hill Country. That's the event. I'm going to start to close things off a little bit here, because I gotta work with my budget. So I'm thinking I'm probably going to start to shut down stuff, towards the end of the month. But I'd love for as many people who want to be a part of this as possible. I know a lot of you in chat room or in Chatlandia are going to get to meet each other. I know everybody's kind of psyched about that. I'm psyched about it. So it's going to be kind of cool, right? We go from virtual to real, as real as we can get. All right. Have a great week. Watch out for that Neptune-Sun opposition. And I'll see you guys on Tuesday with 15 Minutes of Flame. Take care.